Good morning and welcome to Let's Build Daily. I'm your host, Chris Carolin. Today we're going to be diving into some association work between companies and contacts as we build out this demo data set. Yesterday we left it by creating our parent company, in this case Square Enix, and we need to do some associating. We gave it a very basic association with all these child companies and different locations, how we're going to refer to them. So we're going to do some associating there and then associate all of our contacts that we brought in with these companies. And I'm going to talk through some stuff that I feel is important to think about as you do that. But just as a reference point, when we did this previously, I was doing this, with the HubSpot account in our portal. And, not unlike most portals I've seen, even when you think the automated stuff is happening well, we still have this duplication here. And ultimately, this is the reason you want to, get a handle on this stuff. I've seen it in so many portals where, even without the child company situation, you have a couple of these people are working in one record. Let's say they're working in this record, but then HubSpot is automatically tracking stuff and associating it with a different record, right? So just some context there. And of course, this record is, so we see it's related to support, right? Doesn't have contacts associated, right? So we'll be able to get rid of this one. But then if we look at the other one, and what we're going to talk about today is we've got, 48 contacts, across right now, they're all associated with the parent. And we want to make this, more palatable for anybody working in the system to quickly understand how our relationship with the people and with the company are defined and how we approach our interactions. Since I think the location of the HubSpot offices is less impactful to at least the use case I'm going to be talking about, I'm going to share this other context where previously, there's billers, there's billing and accounting functions, there's buying functions, purchasing, there's external partners, there's service companies. Sometimes it's in the same organization, sometimes it's external. So that's a lot of what we're going to be working on from an association perspective. So if we go into our parent company, now we've done an association, but there's no label here, right? So how do these associate with the parent company? Are they all at the same level? They all have the same, roles as you partner with the company, as you try to sell to the company, right? We got to make that much more clear. And just to kind of highlight, and since we're going to be working here and it's going to be a focus, I'm going to just drag that up. I'm also going to drag it up to the middle. This is something I'm still learning as HubSpot, puts more effort into the middle card, right? Is where exactly is the best place to see all this information. So I encourage anyone that can just to start playing around with where they see data. Because ultimately, I think if you can get to the place where the user of the system can work almost their whole job like out of one record type, right? In most cases, if it's customer facing, they're going to be able to do that from the contact record. But I think that's the goal of how you set that up. And once they can work out of one record type, how do we reduce the amount of scrolling and clicking that they have to do to see more or, actually get the information they need? So that way, when they first come in, they have everything at their fingertips. So, again, association labels matter in this context. And especially as we do more with this middle card, because you can see we can very easily filter on these associations, right? And right now, if I pick child, like nothing shows up because there is no label to these associations. So right here, if you can hover in both places and get to associations. So if we click edit association labels, right now we just have child and parent, right? So we're going to select child, but we also want to manage because that really doesn't tell us the whole story. And this is something new across all objects. Last year, it used to be just between like companies to companies, you could associate parent and child, but now you can do this with all objects to associate with each other. So a number of things you can do on the screen, like you can decide like association limits. So as an example, like there's one place we need to send invoices to. So there should be no more than one company associated with the label of, billing or accounting or AR, AP, finance, stuff like that. So if we use this as a point of reference, got billing, shipping, service, different locations. We'll make an assumption that they're going to be doing different things. So let's create some association labels. So you can create a pair of labels that can be applied to each record that is a part of an association. So in this case, the example, one side will be supplier, one side will be contractor. Again, this is why mapping beforehand is beneficial, but we're going to keep it as we look at this external company's relationship. Parent-child is the only, two different labels that are needed. So in this case, at least, so let's just do, let's say like service. Right. And, billing. And say sales. And we'll do R&D. And one more. Like production. And as I mentioned yesterday, like as your company, as your product, as your experience gets introduced to each piece of the supply chain, right? There's still relationships that could be intentionally managed, and the experience provided could be intentionally managed if you have it set up in the system. So you might not think that you need to be communicating with, the purchasing agent because they are not the ones using your product. But at some point, if you need them to do something, it's a lot easier to get them to do it if they have some level of trust in who they are working with. So that's why accessory pieces of content, like, this is why it's easy to work with us, because you can, check out in just a couple clicks, and then you get to log into our portal and see everything, right? So that might not be product related to what you're selling, but just the experience of doing business with you. If it's a good one, you want to promote that, and that impacts other people besides, the end user in that case. So some quick associations for the company. And in order to get those, we need to refresh our page here. All right. So now in this case, we're going to edit and add one that, let's say it's R&D in this case. Right. And then we've got, let's see, let's go for FF7R. And we'll edit these associations. And let's do production is there, and child company. Okay. And then how about Final Fantasy? Let's do 9. My second favorite one. And we'll edit these to be sales update. All right. So now we have these associations in place. And now let's associate some contacts. Now, part of what I'm trying to understand better as we work through these use cases is how many objects actually need to be directly associated, together, right? Like, do we just need, as we get to, let's say, FF7, as we come in here, like, can we just associate contacts here and not with the parent company? And when does it make sense to do both and not do both, right? A lot of it's going to be based on, like, reporting dependencies and kind of what we want to see as we're in these various places, right? But this is where, like, the manual effort of keeping these records updated and keeping the association story of, like, how are we doing business with this organization and the people in it is super important, because we don't have all the enrichment, right? It would be nice, but how we refer to the company, is not how they refer to themselves on LinkedIn or via their, all these data sets from other companies like Clearbit, right? So you have to, at some point, you have to manage it yourself if you want to do the differentiated, personal touches with each piece of the organization, where if most people understand, if you can do that, you will have more success. And it'll be easier to do business. It'll be easier to expand that business. So we've got parent company, and the relationship with the parent company is this the production location. So now let's add contacts as associations. right? And I'm going to search, let's say for FF7, because I think that will get me everybody that I want, right? And we're just gonna make this a little more. This is where clearly once you figure this out on how you want this to do this, they're making the associations available in workflows a lot easier. Easier to manage in an automated way. So once you have a very clear understanding of what pieces of data, as an example, like using FF7 as kind of a key here, right? And also it's a field on these records for company location acronym, right? We can start to use key data points like that to automate associations, because this is certainly, a time-consuming process if you're going to do it manually, but it's so important to do it manually so that you can understand what the process is. And I'm already, annoyed with how dirty the data is, as we didn't do a lot of processing, in the previous 2 days, but it'll give us some fun stuff to use the data quality tool set on there. Now here we have another set of association labels, right, that we want to manage. And in this case, I think sometimes it'll make sense to kind of match, the company associations, sometimes not. Again, like figuring out each use cases. There's some differences, but there's also some standardized approaches, that we can apply. So for right now, I'm just gonna say billing contact. All right. And let's do sales contact, and we'll just keep them there. All right. And while we're over here, so we're still in the companies. By this time, we've been creating association labels for contacts. What's changing is this drop down here. And so this is how we get to the different associations. And as you create objects, again, this is why the mapping is important. First and foremost, as you bring other data, as you create other data containers, other objects for data, making sure these associations are enabled properly. Like a way to double check that is by checking out your data model, right? Coming over here and seeing how stuff, is associated is definitely one way you can do it. But also as we set up the objects, we can enable another association. So we'll add events, right? But in this case, we're going to come back to contacts. We got a couple made. And I just love all the tooling that shows up as you hover over stuff. HubSpot's been so good at that. And this is, I'm exploring right now. So, wow. How long has this been a thing? Oh, this is super helpful. And something I asked for. Yeah. So as you're integrating systems, association labels, in our portal use case, right? Like it's all based on the membership function. Like I log in with an email and I want to see all the records associated with my contact record in HubSpot is how it's working in the back end. I'm not saying that obviously as a customer, but if I want to see, open, like the deals that are open, tickets, deliverables, orders, stuff like that, when we're setting that up, like this association ID and this endpoint is super important. So this is very interesting that I want to just dive into like right now, but we won't. So come back here, and again, after you create, you're going to need to, like if you haven't done it yet, right? Again, mapping, planning, doing it ahead of time, super important. Like there's no, like you will not be able to do it in this screen because they haven't been created. There's no refresh to get you back to that sidebar because you're not saving anything. But luckily we're here, and we'll just find cloud. And we're going to call him a sales contact. Right. And let's say, who would be billing? I think it's going to be like Chadley is definitely billing type. Lots of rules to follow there. So, yeah, so that's a quick, maybe not as quick as I anticipated, but some things to think about as you're associating. Being strategic about it is going to be super important, but also provide just some amazing value. Like if you get this right and you take the time to do it, again, this is what's going to unlock personalization at scale for your company. So exciting times as they continue to lean into association labels and make that better. We will continue building out this data set in the days to come. If you're still with me, I appreciate you so much and would love for you to at least check out the recording. Don't want to take all your time today, but I'm going to be with Max Cohen in a little over an hour talking about event management and showing off some cool expense management activity, literally managing the expenses or the investment right next to the return of your deals, of the relationships that you're building at these events. And if you can do all this in one place, it's just so powerful to be able to show the value of this activity that you're spending so much time and effort on. So really excited to dig into that with Max later today. So until then, take a look at your associations and your relationships, find the opportunity, and let's grow.